Hey guys, it's me. I'm going to continue reading from my book, The 1900s. Okay, here we go. And I know it should be spending time with my family. That's a whole nother story that I don't want to talk about. So, anyways, here we go. The Philippines and imperialism, an issue of debate. Barbara W. Tuchman. As the late Pulitzer Prize-winning author historian Barbara W. Tuchman explained in the following selection, the treaty signed with Spain ending the Spanish-American War of 1898 changed America forever. The treaty itself was an issue of debate between imperialists, those who believed that America should be a colonial power, and anti-imperialists, those who maintained that America should not impose its sovereignty over other lands and peoples. The author paints a vivid portrait of the price of war in the Philippines and the uncertainties of the American people regarding making the Philippines an American territory. According to Tuchman, American imperialism became a major political campaign issue, with both the anti-imperialists and the rebel leader of the Filipinos hoping that the election would end the war raging in the Philippines. Robert Tuchman was a prominent historian, popular for her writing style. She wrote narrative history that the average person could read and understand. President William McKinley, after soul searching and prayer, had arrived at the decision desired by his advisors, and popular with his party. The Philippines must be kept in Paris. Spain's commissioners are given to understand that the time for dickering was over. Possession talked. They would have to yield or face renewal of the war. A token payment of $20 million was offered to Greece, accepted as the inevitable. On December 10th, 1898, the Treaty of Paris was signed, transferring sovereignty of the Philippines to the United States, with the $20 million to follow upon ratification. We have bought 10 million Malayas at $2 a head unpicked, remarked Speaker of the House Reed acidly, and the most prescient comment made by anyone at the time, he added, and nobody knows what it will cost to pick them. Although by now it was half expected, President of the Philippine Republic, Emilio Aguinaldo, I think that's how you say his last name, and his forces learned of the settlement and the bitterness and anguish, many of them hardly able to believe that their liberators and allies had turned into a new set of conquerors. Without an organized army or modern weapons, they prepared to fight again, while waiting for a still possible default. The strong anti-imperialist current in the United States was known to them, and there was hope that the Senate would fail to ratify the treaty. Reopening on December 5th, 1898, the winter session of Congress was dominated by a fight over the treaty more intense than that over Hawaii. Every vote counted. To gather the two-thirds, the Republicans led by Henry Cabot Lodge as chief whip to utilize every artifice, every argument, every avenue of pressure upon their own members and whatever Democrats might be amenable, while the anti-expansionists struggled to hold firm just enough senators to make a 3+1. The public was not happy about the Philippines and venture and confused as to its duty. Democrats and populists especially have felt the war and killed to be in the cause of freedom. Now, through some sorcery of fate, the war had turned into a matter of imposing sovereignty over an unwilling people by the right of conquest. America had become the new Spain. In this unhappy moment, impressive advice was offered through the combined effort of two men with the same extraordinary sensitivity to history in the making. On February 1st, 1899, magazine publisher S.S. McClure published a 2-page spread in his magazine in exoneration an exhortation in verse by British poet author Rudyard Kipling addressed to the Americans in their perplexity. Take up the white man's burden. Send forth the best ye bred, the best ye breed. Go bind your sons to exile, to serve your captives' need, to wait in heavy harness on flutter folk and wild. On flutter folk and wild. Your new cause-stolen peoples, half devil, half child. Take up the white man's burden, the savage words of peace. Fill full the mouth of famine, and bid the sickness cease. Ye dare not stoop to less. The note of righteousness was reinstated. Kipling has struck the perfect combination of noble destiny and unselfish mission. Widely reprinted and requoted, the poem spread across the country within a week, doing much to reconcile the hesitant to the imperial task. A treaty in dispute. In Washington, it appeared as if opponents of the treaty might be successful, for the Republicans lacked one vote to make up the 2/3 for ratification. Suddenly, William Jennings Bryan arrived in Washington, to the amazement of his followers, urged them to vote for the treaty. As leader of the Democratic Party, he fully intended to be the standard bearer himself in 1900, but he recognized the need of a new standard. Calculating that he could not win on the repetition of the Silver Issue, he was perfectly prepared to give it up in favor of imperialism, a new crown of thorns. He was sure that retention of the Philippines would be productive of so much trouble as to make a flaming campaign issue. But it must be consummated at first. Consequently, he told his party it would not do to defeat the treaty. At this point, with the vote scheduled for February 6, 1899, with the outcome uncertain, with each side anxiously canvassing the county and counting every possible aye and nay, the Filipinos rose in their own war of independence. Their forces attacked the American lines outside Manila on the night of February 4th, 1899. In Washington, although the news intensified the frenzied speculation, no one could be certain what effect it would have. A last-minute petition signed by ex-President Grover Cleveland, President Eliot of Harvard, and 22 other men of national prominence was addressed to the Senate, protesting against the treaty unless it included a provision against annexing the Philippines and Puerto Rico. In accordance with the principles upon which our republic was founded, we are in duty bound to recognize the rights of the inhabitants to independence and self-government, and pointed out that if, as McKinley had once declared, the forcible annexation of Cuba would be criminal aggression by our code of morals, annexation of the Philippines would be no less so. Its text was unanswerable, but it offered no judgeships, political futures, or other coin that Lodge and Bryan were dealing in. When the Senate voted on February 6, 1899, the treaty won by 57 to 27, with a one-vote margin. It was the closest, hardest fight I have ever known, said Lodge. In the aftermath, one thing on which all agreed was that Bryan had swung the deciding vote. By the time the vote was counted, 59 Americans were dead and 278 wounded, and some 500 Filipinos were casualties in the Philippines. The cost of pigging lives was just beginning to be paid. The way the country picked up its ancient principles at the first touch of temptation was sickening, wrote William Jennings in a private letter, publicly to the Boston Evening Transcript, who were now openly engaged in crushing out the sacredest thing in this great human world, the attempt of a people long enslaved to attain freedom and work out its own destiny. The saddest thing for men such as James was a party with the American dream. America, Charles Eliot Norton wrote, has lost her unique position as a leader in the in the progress of civilization and has taken up her place simply as one of the grasping and selfish nature of the present day. To many others, the knowledge of American guns firing on Filipinos was painful. The anger of the anti-imperialists deepened and their membership increased to 500,000. We are false to all we have believed in, wrote journalist Morpheus Story. This great free land, which for more than a century has offered refuge to the oppressed of every land, has now turned to oppression. Still unwilling to give up the oath for leadership from Speaker of the House Thomas B. Reed, whom Roosevelt called the most influential man in Congress. Writing to Senator Harr, Story begged him to persuade Mr. Reed to come out as he should. He is very sluggish and lacks aggression and great merits. If he would come out, I think he might really be the next president. It was too late. Reed's sluggishness was that of a man for whom the fight has turned sour. Others whose main interest lay in non-political fields could feel as deeply without being shattered. Reed's whole life was in Congress, and politics and the exercise of representative government was the qualification that for him it had to be exercised toward an end that he believed in. His party and his country were now bent on a course for which he felt deep distrust and disgust. To mention expansion to him, said journalists, was like touching a match and brought forth so for his language, the tide turning against him. He could not turn back and would not go with it. Please rate, comment, and subscribe down below. And ring that bell notification so that you know when I upload. And if you're on TikTok, please like and follow my videos. And please please buy something from either my eBay and or Mercari. Okay? Bye.